Can you hear me, Brian? But you weren't frozen.
Okay, we're back now. Yep, we're back
Okay.
now. We're frozen there. We're
Yeah,
good.
your video is frozen, but I can hear your audio.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Oh, do you know?
I don't get no backup from you guys, none at all. None.
Okay, I'm back. There we go. I'm good now.
Brian, Paul, you can hear, right?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right,
I can
everyone
hear
can hear
now.
me?
Yeah, I froze
Okay.
up, but I can hear now. I'm good.
Your video's frozen, but we can hear you. So as long as we have the audio, we're good. All right, we're gonna begin.
Okay.
Okay, yes.
This public meeting of the Board of Pensions and Retirement is being conducted in person in the board's conference room at the board's offices in the 16th floor Center pursuant to section 21-1503 of the Philadelphia Code. Electronic recording of the meeting will be made available through Microsoft Teams conference technology and by an audio recording. An electronic recording will be made available to the public online on the board's website without charge within 10 days. Please note that you consent to such recording by attending, participating, or speaking at such meeting. I'd like to also note that board members and trustees Brian Coughlin and Paul Reed are present and they are participating remotely through Microsoft Teams. I'd like to ask Brian to please speak so we can make sure we can hear him. Brian, can you
I'm
hear
here,
us?
Jackie. This
Thank
is
you.
Brian.
I'd like to
Yes,
ask
this is
Paul. Paul, are you able to hear us?
I can hear.
Great, thank you. And can I confirm all members of the table can hear Brian and Paul?
Yes. Yeah.
Just want to also note that we returned from executive session to receive confidential advice on legal matters. The forum is present for that session. And our first order of business is a motion now to adopt the rules of order that the board has approved and used for our in-person meetings that are recorded. The purpose is to help instructors accurately complete audio recordings of the meeting in order to comply with the code's requirements. Item 1, a motion to adopt these procedures for today's meeting has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian?
I
Brian?
approve.
Thank you. Marcia? Approved.
I approve.
Roosevelt?
Approve.
Aubrey?
Approve.
Paul?
I approve.
Charles?
Approve.
And Carol. Motion carries unanimously. Item 2, a motion to approve our minutes from the June 22nd meeting was made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian? Brian, we have you on the minutes. Back. Marcia? Approved. Sherilyn?
Yes, I approve.
Thanks, Brian. We'll note Brian's approval. Roosevelt?
Approve.
Aubrey?
Approve.
Paul?
I approve.
Charles? And Carol? Motion. Yes, I got you. Thank you. The motion carries 7-0 with 1 noted abstention. Item 3, a motion to approve 120 pension applications and 45 withdrawal applications was made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Brian?
I approve.
Marcia? Approved. Sherilyn? Approved. Roosevelt?
Approve.
Aubrey?
Approve.
Paul?
I approve.
Charles?
Approve.
And Carol. Motion carries unanimously. Moves us into section 4. 4A, a motion to approve service-connected disability benefits for Sean Brown was made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none. Brian?
I'll abstain.
Marcia?
Deny.
Sherilyn? Deny. Roosevelt?
Abstain.
Aubrey?
Aye.
Paul?
I abstain.
Charles?
Deny.
And Carol. The motion fails 0-4 with 4 noted abstentions. 4B, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Jerry Williams was made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Brian?
I approve.
Marcia?
Deny.
Sherilyn? Deny. Roosevelt?
Approve.
Aubrey?
Aye.
Paul?
I approve.
Charles?
Approve.
And Carol.
Approved.
The motion carries 5-3. 4C, motion to approve service-connected disability benefits for Bettina Valvera was made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none. Brian?
I approve.
Marcia?
Approved.
Sherilyn? Approved. Roosevelt?
Approve.
Aubrey?
Approve.
Paul?
I approve.
Charles? Carol? Motion carries unanimously. 4D, a motion to approve service-connected disability benefits for Harry Barmore was made and seconded. Any discussion on 4D? Brian?
I approve.
Marcia?
Deny.
Sherilyn? Deny. Roosevelt?
Approve.
Aubrey?
Deny.
Paul?
Approve.
Charles?
Approve.
Carol?
Approved.
Motion carries 5-3. 4E, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for James Campbell was made and seconded. Any discussion on 4E? Hearing none. Brian?
I'll abstain.
Marcia?
Deny.
Sherilyn? Deny. Roosevelt?
Abstain.
Aubrey?
Aye.
Paul?
I abstain.
Charles?
Deny.
Carol?
Thanks.
The motion fails 0-4 with 4 noted abstentions. 4F, A motion to approve service connected disability benefits for Gary Campano was made and seconded. Any discussion on 4F? Brian,
I'll abstain.
Marcia,
Deny.
Sherilyn. Deny. Roosevelt,
Abstain.
Aubrey,
Aye.
Paul,
I abstain.
Charles,
Deny.
Carol.
Abstain.
Motion fails 0-4 with 4 noted abstentions. Case 4G, a motion to approve the service connected disability benefits for John Carleon Lorente was made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none. Brian,
I'll approve.
Marcia,
Deny.
Sherilyn. Deny. Roosevelt,
Approve.
Aubrey, Paul,
I approve.
Charles,
Deny.
and Carol.
Approve.
4-4, and as the chair, I will vote to deny if these bills 4-5. 4H, a motion to approve the service connected disability benefits for Tommy Culp was made and seconded. Any discussion on 4H? Hearing none. Brian,
I abstain.
Marcia,
Deny.
Sherilyn. Deny. Roosevelt,
Abstain.
Aubrey,
Aye.
Paul,
I abstain.
Charles,
Deny.
and Carol.
Abstain.
Motion fails 0-4 with 4 abstentions. 4I, a motion to approve service connected disability benefits for Karen Guzman was made and seconded. Any discussion on 4I? Hearing none. Brian,
I abstain.
Brian, you abstain, is that correct?
I abstain, yes.
Thank you. Marcia,
Deny.
Sherilyn. Deny. Roosevelt,
Abstain.
Aubrey,
Aye.
Paul,
I abstain.
Charles,
Deny.
Carol.
Abstain.
The motion fails 0-4 with 4 noted abstentions. 4J, a motion to approve the service connected disability benefits for Kenneth Miller was made and seconded. Any discussion on this item?
Jack, yes, and, I have some reasons to this. One of the doctor's report, I'm not 100% sure on, I'm gonna ask for some kind of clarity on what we can take was because one of the doctors put in there that that the disability was part due into the work and then the other part wasn't, so we're trying to see what part was, what part wasn't, so it's not clear to me, so I'm like, let's do this.
Request additional approval.
Yes.
So who's up that, and just clarify, that's the report Dr. Anthony and due since only partly due to the work issue, that's what you're referring to.
Yes.
But it's really, to further clarify.
Please, yes.
You got it.
A revised motion was requested to table case 4J. Is there a second?
Second.
Revised motion to table case 4J was made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian,
I approve.
Marshall,
Approve.
Sherilyn. Approved. Roosevelt,
Approve.
Aubrey,
Approve.
Paul,
I approve.
Charles,
Approve.
and Carol.
Approve.
The revised motion carries unanimously. Case 4K, motion to approve service connected disability benefits for Terrence Mulvey is made and seconded. Any discussion on 4K? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian,
I approve.
Marcia,
Approve.
Sherilyn. Approved. Roosevelt,
Approve.
Aubrey,
Approve.
Paul,
I approve.
Charles,
Approve.
Carol.
Approve.
Motion carries unanimously. 4L, a motion to approve service connected disability benefits for David Plummer was made and seconded. Any discussion on 4L? Hearing none. Brian,
I'll abstain.
Marcia,
Deny.
Sherilyn. Deny. Roosevelt,
Abstain.
Aubrey, Paul,
Abstain.
Charles,
Deny.
Carol.
Abstain.
The case fails 0-4 with 4 extensions. For M, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Robert Robinson was made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian,
I approve.
Marcia,
Denied.
Sherilyn, Roosevelt,
I approve.
Aubrey, Paul,
I approve.
Charles, and Carol. Motion carries 5-3. Case 4N, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for George Schmid was made and seconded. Any discussion on this item?
Yes. This is another case where one of the doctors in the doctor's report said that the injury was largely corrected. So we're going to ask for clarification on that as well. Is it fully corrected or should we don't know? So can we request for clarification of those large corrected injuries?
Thank you. Brand, do you need reference to which report?
I know that, I said it was correct for surgery. You referred to a different doctor.
Next year, the next day was
No,
largely.
Dr. Hayworth, our risk management doctor, her words, our risk management doctor, her words say that he was largely corrected, and that cannot be our standard in the city. We don't largely correct. We either correct or we don't. So I fully agree with him on this, and it's our own doctor's report. Look at the words from Dr. Hayworth. That can never be the standard.
Able to go back to private.
Bias motion to table case 4N was made. Is there a second? Bias motion was made and properly seconded to table 4N for clarification. Any discussion on the revised motion? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian,
I approve.
Marcia,
Approve.
Roosevelt, Sherilyn, Aubrey,
Approve.
Paul,
Approve.
Charles,
Approve.
Carol.
Approve.
Revised motion carries unanimously. Case 4O, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Sharice Butts is made and seconded. Any discussion on 4O? Hearing none, go to the roll. Brian,
I abstain.
Marcia,
Denied.
Sherilyn, Roosevelt,
Abstain.
Aubrey, Paul,
Abstain.
Charles,
Denied.
Carol.
Abstain.
The motion fails 0-4 with 4 abstentions. 4P, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Elmer Carney was made and seconded. Any discussion on case 4P? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian,
Approve.
Marcia,
Denied.
Sherilyn, Roosevelt,
Approve.
Aubrey, Paul,
I approve.
Charles,
Denied.
and Carol.
Approve.
The case was a tie 4-4. As chair, I will vote to deny, so the motion fails 4-5. For Q, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for William Coogan was made and seconded. Any discussion on 4Q? Hearing none. Brian, I'm sorry, Brian, you didn't have your vote on 4Q.
For Q, staying on for Q.
Marcia,
Denied.
Sherilyn, Roosevelt,
Abstain.
Aubrey, Paul,
I abstain.
Charles,
Denied.
Carol.
Abstain.
The motion fails 0-4 with 4 abstentions. Case 4R, a motion to approve service-connected disability benefits for Gerald Zopecki was made and seconded. Any discussion on case 4R? Hearing none. Brian,
I,
Marcia,
No.
Carolyn. Deny. Roosevelt,
Abstain.
Aubrey,
Aye.
Paul,
I abstain.
Charles, Carol.
Abstain.
Motion fails 0-4 with 4 abstentions. Case 4S, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Arthur Gaffney was made and seconded. Any discussion on 4S? Hearing none. Brian,
I,
sorry, Brian, you broke up.
4S, approve.
4S is approved. Marcia,
No.
Sherilyn. Deny. Roosevelt. Aubrey. Paul,
I approve.
Charles,
Approved.
and Carol.
Approved.
The motion carries 5-3. 4C, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Darren Hoffman was made and seconded. Any discussion on case 14? Hearing none. Brian,
I approve.
Marcia,
Approved.
Sherilyn. Deny. Roosevelt,
Approved.
Aubrey,
Approved.
Paul,
I approve.
Charles,
Approved.
Carol.
Approved.
The motion carries 7-1. Case 4U, motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Clovis Johnson was made and seconded. Any discussion on case 4U? Hearing none. Brian, Brian, could you restate your vote for 4U?
For you, yes, I approve for you.
Thank you. Marcia,
Deny.
Sherilyn. Denied. Roosevelt,
Approved.
Aubrey,
Aye.
Paul,
I approve.
Charles,
Approved.
Carol.
Approved.
Please, carries 5-3. Motion carries 5-3. 4B, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Sharita McNeil was made and seconded. Any discussion on 4B? Hearing none. Brian, I'll come back to Brian. Marcia,
Denied.
Sherilyn. Deny. Roosevelt,
I approve.
Aubrey,
Aye.
Paul,
I approve.
Charles,
Deny.
Brian,
I said he lost audio.
okay, Carol,
Approved. Some to the.
and we have him call into the team. So.
Yeah, picture frozen.
I have you on my phone and you're on the speaker. They're at 4V and they need your votes. The V is enter, I approve.
Thanks, Brian. I'm confirming we can hear you. 4B was a tie 4-4 as chair. I will vote to deny and the motion fails 4-5. 4W, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Marquita Moss was made and seconded. Any discussion on 4W? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian,
I approve.
Masha,
Denied.
Sherilyn. Deny. Roosevelt,
Approved.
Aubrey,
Aye.
Paul,
I approve.
Charles,
Deny.
and Carol.
Approved.
Case was a tie 4-4 as chair will vote to deny and the motion fails 4-5. Case 4X, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Sean Pierce was made and seconded. Any discussion on case 4X? Brian? Marcia? Carolyn? Approved. Roosevelt?
Approved.
Aubrey? Paul?
Approve.
Charles,
Approve.
Carol.
Approved.
Motion carries unanimously. 4Y, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Rochelle Reddy was made and seconded. Any discussion on case 4Y? Hearing none. Brian? Marcia?
Approved.
Sherilyn?
Deny.
Roosevelt?
Approve.
Aubrey? Paul?
I approve.
Charles?
Approve.
And Carol.
Approved.
The motion carries 7-1. 4Z, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Thelma Searseed was made and seconded. Any discussion on case 4Z? Hearing none. Brian?
I abstain.
Marcia?
Deny.
Sherilyn?
Deny.
Roosevelt?
Abstain.
Aubrey? Paul?
I abstain.
Brian, can we ask you to mute your teams?
Standard on Teams here. I got my audio back, so it's audio back, so now it's on Teams.
Okay. Charles? And Carol? For case 4Z.
Abstain.
The motion for 4Z fails 0-4 with 4 abstentions. Case 4AA, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Floyd Sutton was made and properly seconded. Any discussion on case 4AA? Hearing none. Brian?
I abstain.
Marcia?
Deny.
Sherilyn?
Deny.
Roosevelt?
Abstain.
Aubrey? Paul?
I abstain.
Charles?
Deny.
And Carol.
Abstain.
The motion fails 0-4 with 4 extensions. 4BB, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Timothy Wilson was made and seconded. Any discussion on case 4BB? Hearing none. Brian?
I abstain.
Marcia?
Deny.
Sherilyn?
Deny.
Roosevelt?
Abstain.
Aubrey? Paul?
I abstain.
Charles?
Deny.
Carol.
Abstain.
The motion fails 0-4 with 4 abstentions. 4C, motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for William Hill was made and seconded. Any discussion on case 4C? Hearing none. Brian?
I abstain.
Marcia?
Deny.
Sherilyn?
Deny.
Roosevelt?
Abstain.
Aubrey? Paul?
Abstain.
Charles?
Deny.
And Carol.
Abstain.
The motion fails 0-4 with 4 abstentions. Section 5, case 5A, motion to approve the application to purchase pension credit for prior government service. For Cheryl Bryant was made and seconded. Any discussion on case 5A? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian?
Deny.
Marcia?
Deny.
Sherilyn?
Deny.
Roosevelt?
Deny.
Aubrey?
Deny.
Paul?
Deny.
Charles?
Deny.
And Carol.
Deny.
The motion fails 0-8. Section 6A, a motion to approve the request for payment of additional months of drop regarding Francis Zamponia was made and seconded. Any discussion on case 6A? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian?
Deny.
Marcia?
Deny.
Sherilyn?
Deny.
Roosevelt?
Abstain.
Aubrey?
Deny.
Paul?
Abstention. Abstain.
Abstain. Thank you, Paul. Charles?
Deny.
And Carol.
Deny.
The motion fails 0-6 with 2 noted abstentions. That brings us into section 7A. The motion to approve the application to transfer plan Y5 regarding Shannon Stewart is made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, we go to the roll. Brian?
Deny?
Marcia,
Deny.
Sherilyn. Deny. Roosevelt,
Deny.
Aubrey,
Deny.
Paul,
Deny.
Charles.
Deny.
Carol.
Deny.
The motion fails 0-8. 7B, a motion to approve the application for service-connected disability benefits regarding Kimberly Boone was made and seconded. Any discussion on case 7B? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian,
I approve.
Marcia,
Deny.
Sherilyn. Deny. Roosevelt,
Approve.
Aubrey, Paul,
I approve.
Charles.
Deny.
And Carol.
Approve.
The case was a tie 4-4. As chair, I will vote to deny, and the motion fails 4-5. The last case, case 7C, a motion to approve the application for service-connected disability benefits beyond the 1-year deadline. For Ruth Ann Evans was made and seconded. Any discussion on 7C? Hearing none. Brian,
I approve.
Marcia,
Deny.
Sherilyn. Deny. Roosevelt,
Approve.
Aubrey,
Deny.
Paul,
I approve.
Charles.
Deny.
Carol.
Approve.
7C was a tie 4-4. I will vote to deny, and the motion fails 4-5. Brings us finally to new business and executive session.
I'll be very brief. Item 16 review meeting, just as a reminder, it's August 15th, 10 to 12. Ellen, she, Brad, and myself, will be there, and other people. Brad, she means Ellen will be presenting. Just a heads up, on the 31 cases in May, the service-connected disability applications are up, just so everyone's aware. The additional cases will be the new norm, at least for a while. I can tell you, in 2022, there was a 44% increase over the normal level of cases. So just anywhere between 60 and 80. So we were up 44% in 2022. So far, in 2023, which is half a year, we are up 20% over 2022. So in the 6 months of 2023, we are up over 20% over the prior year's 44%.
So the problem comes getting people to sit on these hearing panels. But that's what the problem for men is. You got all these hearing panels coming up because all these bills won't be, those will be billed. So then you have to sit around for people to sit on the panel.
The hearing panels will be difficult, so we can more feel. The workload on the law department will be more. In addition to that, the cost, right, if you work with the law department, have to even more. The additional cost for the medical panel is going to be significantly more. In fact, we may have to go back from a budget perspective to request more funds. Maybe just simply not anticipated additional 20% increase over the prior years, 44%. So, we pay for all of that. So it's a significant expenditure. So I just wanted to be aware of.
So, but
Not be waiting, just want to. No, that's it. I'm done.
so you said August the 13th? Okay,
The session is August August the 15th from 10 to 12. And it's in person. Here in the conference room.
So are we like caught up, we won't get as many cases as we got this month? Oh,
I think we will be closer to this number than the number we're used to. Maybe not quite as high because Dr. Weiner was on vacation for a period of time. That's why there was a period where we're not seeing many cases from Dr. Weiner. He's now back from vacation. So, we'll start seeing, and he was receiving the same amount of cases as all the other doctors, just that he wasn't returning because of vacation. now he's back, so, yeah, I think we'll be probably close to the number we're at now. At least not,
In case of this,
if he's 31, I think, yeah.
well, I'm not talking about A, B, I mean, A, I'm talking about in the 4 category.
Right, that's right.
We went through the whole alphabet soup and came back around.
Yeah.
So,
And it was a lot of work, a lot of good work by Elizabeth and Luis.
Yes, it was a very good work, but, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, that's all the updates I have. There's a litigation summary in the packet. Adam, I don't know if you had anything.
Found that there's several cases in CCP, but there's.
Thanks, Adam.
Any other new business? Hearing none, a motion to adjourn has been made and seconded, and hearing no objection, it carries unanimously to move into deferred. Why don't we take a 5-minute break?
Thank you.
Elizabeth,
Yes,
okay, I gotta go to a doctor's appointment.
okay,
They're already aware.
okay.
I'm signing
Hold on
off.
1 second, Carol.
Wait a minute. Jack Paul is leaving the meeting, he has a medical appointment, so he won't be in the investment side.
Yeah, we'll note it.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, good luck.
All right, thank you.
Before you pick up appreciation, I'll put it back up, and I just take up the order. I honestly want to publicly thank Marsha for her staff, honestly. We had a conversation last month. I had some issues on the streets of the stores. March actually told me with me, so we got it done. And I can say that since the last meeting, teamwork, it's been a whole run.
That's great.
I'll let you do great job. Amazing for it because I was a little, twist here, but, since then, honestly, I really want to say thank you. I want everybody to know.
That's what we
They all
like.
hear us complaining, so they don't ever hear us saying thank you to the people that's getting the job. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. We appreciate that. Right, Bob?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Starting from the top, I want to note that, Brian is here remotely and was, but me. So that, the first item is, well, the minutes from June 22nd. Move and properly seconded, the minutes to be approved. Call roll. Brian,
I approve.
Francois, approved. Martha,
Approved.
Roosevelt, approved. Aubrey, approved. Dick, approved. Carol, approved. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. Agenda item 2, plan update.
Good morning.
We're not gonna try to do one item.
Sorry. For compensation plan, the ending balance as of June 30th is 1,716,791,805.75. That's about 3.3% increase over the month of May. Total participant count is 25,307. That's 16 less than the previous month of May. The actively deferring is 19,644, 2 less than the month of May. New enrollments continue to increase. 172 new enrollments received in the month of June. Year to date, we're at 1,036, which is the highest that we've ever received since we've started the plan. Then that's thanks to Brad and his team. Really spent talk a little bit about the activity.
Great job.
Yes.
Inactive participants have dropped at total count was 5,663. There was 14 less than the month of May. We report out for the Philadelphia Parking Authority, there are 525 participants, 3 new enrolled in the month of June. And then Philadelphia Housing Development Corporation, we have 42 participants, 0 new enrollments in the month of June. In the 401(a) plan, the ending balance as of June 30th was $2,399,706.20. That's about 3.9% increase over the month of May. There are 939 participants, 2 less than the month. Call volumes have decreased. The month of June is a slow month. We handled 3,486 phone calls. That's about 294 less calls than the month of May. You'll see an uptick in July when the June statements come out. Online account continues to increase. There are now 19,051 participants that have set up a web account. That's about 51 more than last month at penetration about 75%. Percentage option in June, there were 1,832 participants utilizing the percentage contribution option. That's an increase of 32 more participants enrolled in percentage since the month of May. Drop, which is the after-tax contributions, as of June, there are 5,871 participants. That's an increase of 87 more since the month of June at $42.6 million. Happy to answer any questions that you may have. If not, I'm going to pass it on to Brad to discuss the service activity. And
Questions? Take it away, Greg.
Thank you, Rob. Good morning, everyone. Local office team conducted 228 one-on-one consultations in the month of June. 95 of those resulting in direct enrollments and 20 increases. 14 of those consultations use the My Interactive Retirement Planning tool. And for the month of June, there were 27 workshops that were conducted with total attendees of 906. Any questions about that?
So were we able to ever, maybe you reported on this and I wasn't at the meeting, membership by union in the deferred comp plan?
We haven't been able to pull that. I work with, perhaps, I think one Philly might be able to pull that for us.
Yes, they probably could.
So we don't track the unions or code for the
Okay.
participants.
Okay. Because, one of the things that, and we'll talk about this more at the educational version, but that's one of the things we want to ensure that by our unions that we're having significant participation. And then the other thing I was noticing is the age groups. So we need to get people when they're younger to start participating as opposed to waiting until middle age. So those are the things I think we just need to keep in mind.
Absolutely, 100% looking forward to the education subcommittee also.
You know, I don't think that's the age. I don't think we're gonna have much impact on the age. It's basically up to the person when they doing it, but if we catch them as they come in as new employees, you have a mixture of age. So some of them are joining, some of them won't join, but we can look at it when we have the commitment, but I don't know how much we can control when they get into the plan.
That's true, but what we want people to do is people kind of think when they're new in the city and they're making less money, they feel that they can't participate because they're not making a whole lot of money. And the goal is because if they join the pre-tax program, it's really nominal and you don't even see the difference in your paycheck. And probably if we had examples that showed them if you made, I'm making it up, if you make $35,000 a year and you put 1% or you put $20 each pay. Okay, how much would your take home be? Because we know from the salary ranges what that, what $10 or $20 per pay would mean and over a period of time. So that's kind of what you want young people to really understand because it's about generational wealth.
Right, so I will speak to when they come and do our new member orientations, that's exactly what they go over. And they give them the dollar amount and the percentage amount, and they encourage them all to join, even if it's $5. So that is being done at 47. At 47, and I'm assuming it's being done at police and fire, on the right. As well, so the other one you may want to look at, is it being done at 33, but since they're the last one to get on a horse,
Yes.
it may be a little catching up on that, but that is already being done
Okay.
to their benefit, that is already being done at 47 new member orientation, so.
Okay, that's good.
I can say I was at DC 33 new employee orientation yesterday.
Oh, that's right.
Personally, so it is being done there as well. What I can do, maybe at the education subcommittee, Marcia, we have an enrollment kit that we bring to all the new employee orientations. And in there is an illustration of, we call it the cost of waiting. If you contribute this amount now at age 30, or if you wait till you're 35, what could that difference be? That's one of the things we use, and I'm happy to bring a copy of that so you can see it
Oh,
for the education. So
Okay, terrific. Thanks so much.
Bring any copy.
I'll bring a copy for everyone.
Great.
Harold, if I could say, I think the key, and this is what I do with my members, and I think we're going to find that fire has a pretty high participation rate. I believe that. I think they have to understand that having a pension plan, especially if you're in plan 16, is not enough to retire on. I mean, it's a nice benefit. I don't want to say that it's bad to have a pension. We don't have cost of living. There's some drawbacks to having a pension, but they feel a comfort. They feel like they have their retirement plan. That's what I've learned from my young folks because they're not educated on this. And then but in addition to teaching them the value of saving on deferred comp, they have to learn the problems with our pension plan. It's not enough. And it's certainly not enough if you're going to live for a while. So I just want to add that in. I think that's a critical component.
And again, yeah, thank you, Brian. Again, I will say at our meeting, Christina goes into all that because and by her being a young adult as well, they can look at her and connect to the age limit. So Thank you, we do, that's what I like about the whole picture. You have to get the whole picture for retirement, for members to understand. People understand what they need to do, so thank you, we do that as well.
Further question? Then item 3. Thanks, Ron. Great. This is a recommendation from staff who had a new large cap 1,000 value index as an option for participants in the PCP plan. You remember several months ago, staff recommended and the board approved a large cap growth index. Since then, we always reviewed the plan. We've had some conversations, talked to some folks. Don, who's the CFP, actually commented that it come up with a couple of his members or clients when he was talking to them upstairs. So we searched the universe based on the, track record minimum of 100 million product assets, and felt that three funds met the appropriate criteria that were also available on the nationwide platform. Vanguard fund we see listed was eliminated because after a couple of the other prior searches, they required a minimum initial, which we've not. That left the 2 Fidelity funds, which you see on the middle of the page. The first choice, the ticker symbol FLCOX, has a lower fee. It's also the direct companion to the fund, the growth fund that the board added several months ago. And so we feel, given the fees, the performance, the fact that it's direct companion to the fund that the board recently added, and to give folks that balance between the growth and value in the space that they like it, that this particular fund should be added. If the board accepts staff's recommendations and then we provide formal notice to Nationwide by August 3rd, the new choice would become available in October, and we would send, or Nationwide rather, would send the standard notification of this option to participants in initiation. If you need any questions. There's a motion. Recommendation.
Second.
Moving properly seconded. Roll. Brian.
I approve.
Francois. Approved. Marcia. Approved. Roosevelt. Approved. Aubrey. Approved. Nick. Approved. Cal. The motion carries. Thank you all very much. Any new business? First company old business. Move to properly seconded and be returned for a company or adjourned. Going to the investment committee. Yes. Then item 1 is approval of the minutes from the June meeting. Move to properly seconded and be for those minutes. Call the roll. Brian.
I approve.
Francois. Approved. Marcia.
Approved.
Roosevelt. Approved. Audrey. Approved. Nick. Approved. Carol. Approved. Motion carries. Thank you all very much. That takes us to the private investment recommendation. Thanks, Rob. And I'll keep my comments really great for Brad, Brian, come up with use of I just wanted to note that this would be this was staff's second recommendation in private market space to the board this year. If it was approved, it would take total commitments to date in 2023 up to $100 million, and the pacing calls for somewhere between 105 and 175 million. So we'd be well on our way. As this is also a private debt and private credit vehicle, I would note, we have a 2% target to that particular sub asset class. And right now, as of the end of June, we're at about 1.2%. So we would still be under our target, but well. And that I'll turn it over to those folks and the managers here to present. Sorry.
Morning. Staff and Marquette are here to discuss Turning Rock Partners, specifically Turning Rock Partners, recommendation for the board. I'm going to give a brief overview of Turning Rock Partners. Dale is going to be very granular in terms of the merits of Turning Rock Partners 3, and Brett will just provide us analysis and data of Marquette's highlights. There's a very attractive kind of credit managers that we're bringing before the board. It's a boutique firm headquartered in New York. There are 18 managers. Firm has a long-term track record. It's worked together for approximately 16 years, 10 years at Fortress, 6 years at Turning Rock Partners. This is their third fund that they have, and they have really established a niche in terms of the companies that they source, that they fund, and the way in which they securitize the capital that they invest. And what also is noteworthy to mention, there are 3 principals. 2 are ladies. This is a majority woman-owned firm. And not only is it a majority woman-owned firm, but it is a firm that was awarded the best female funded firm in North America, awarded by the Private Equity Women Investor Network for the calendar year 2022. They Abelard excuse me.
Let's go, Maggie.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. She has a very distinguished resume, as do all the members of her team. And she has been on television and so forth, that she's extremely accomplishing. Specifically, so far as this investment is concerned, it is noteworthy for the board. I would just mention very briefly, we're recommending a $50 million investment, $25 million into the main Turning Rock Partners 3 fund. The fund fee there is 1.5% and 20% carry. Staff has negotiated with Turning Rock to also have a sidecar, no fee, no carry, which we've done several times now. So the effective, also a $25 million investment, so it's a $50 million total. The effective blended fee is reduced to 0.75 basis points, and the carry is reduced to 10%. This is well below market rate.
Place that or
Correct. So this is a great money manager, attractive niche. And also this niche that they focus on, the major money center banks have stepped away or not as active in terms of lending. So they have established themselves in this specific market. And with that, I will turn it over to my distinguished colleague, Del.
Thank you, Brian. And I know Brett is going to present as well, so I don't want to be too repetitive here, but just want to highlight a couple important information here about Turning Rock focuses on non-sponsored, family-owned, founder-owned businesses with enterprise value of less than $1 billion. The company is not only targeting businesses who are thriving, but also will partner with visionaries who have gone through so many trials and errors, and who have so much pride in the companies they build and continue to dedicate their time and energy to ensure the long-term success and the stability of those companies. Turning Rock offers something unique to these companies that the life player don't, and that is creating long-term value for those companies by providing flexible capital solutions, operational support, and strategic guidance. Additionally, the firm prioritizes companies that have maintained low to moderate debt to EBITDA ratio of 4.x or lower and have generated consistent revenue stream. Just to give you a sense of some of the deals and businesses they target, TRP look for significant discount to underlying value, asset value, definable cash flow, and strong asset coverage and clear exit or monetization. Also, the company negotiates various covenant and continuously monitor the covenant to ensure that this business is abided by this agreement. TRP manage cash flows, monitor cash flows, debt and equity levels, use of leverage, expenses, liquidities, as well as asset coverage. Just in 2022, Turning Rock sourced over 700 deals. Only 25% of those deals were made into the advanced review process, and only 1% of those deals were approved. And that has been the process they maintained over the years. Just a little bit about the team. Turning Rock employs 18 professionals with many years of expertise in credit investments, capital management, debt restructuring. Team is led by Mike Everland, as Brian mentioned, who served as the CEO and managing partner of Turning Rock, along with 2 partners, David Marcus and Saba Hamid, who have a decade of experience and credit investments in the industry in general. Despite their seemingly poor track record, the team has been working together in the same field and the same company for about 16 years. And the majority of the current employees have been, previously working at Fortress alongside the 3 partners, and bringing significant experience to the table. And we find that to be very important in just about that market. For its fund 1, Turning Rock invested $348 million, generating 12% net IRR and 1.3 MOC. And for fund 2, it invested $244 million and generated 8% IRR, 1.1 MOC. For fund 3, the firm is looking to raise $600 million. To date, the company raised $300 million so far. The final close is estimated to be in Q3, and the GP commitment is 2% and management fee is 1.5%. The current interest is 20% with 80% preferred return. On investment vehicle, we've negotiated as 0% management fee and 0% carry, bringing the overall fee structure to 0.75 and 10% carry. Overall, Turning Rock look for stability in cash flow, stability in leadership, debt and asset value, stability in product and services and capital expenditure. So we do believe that this company look for the long-term benefit of its investors. And with that, I'll pass it on to Frank.
Yeah, no, a little bit of history at Turning Rock. We met Turning Rock and Megan and team back in 2019. Our clients became first-time investors in the fund in vintage 2, and in 2021, one of our clients who was a Taft-Hartley plan invested in that fund. And when it comes to Turning Rock, I think the 2 strengths or 2 parts of value add that they have relative to the overall market is, first of all, their sourcing. So in a lot of cases, they're sourcing actually directly from the banks. They'll be the first call from the bank, given that the bank can't continue the relationship, can't continue to lend to that company. Those banks continue to fall out of the market, fall out of the market as they fall out of SPV, as Bern had mentioned. So their opportunity set continues to grow. Also, they have strong relationships with investment banks and lawyers. So the sourcing network that many other managers don't have. And then the second value add, I would say, is the structuring of the deal themselves. What I mean by the structuring is downside protection when it comes to things like covenants on the deal, the credit agreements, also board seats, so they're intimately involved in the operations of the business. That leads to beneficial outcomes, and as you can see in the returns, it's been first and second quartile returns. And those were more benign, I would say, market environments. So we think, given the current market environment and the need for capital, that we believe that this will be another strong vintage year for them, with the increased deal flow that they've seen. And then the Philadelphia team has negotiated, really, really strong economics just based on high quality exposure. So it creates a very attractive package with attractive investment opportunity.
Can you talk a little bit about why banks won't lend to businesses?
Yeah, in a lot of cases, these banks have had relationships with these family founder and entrepreneur-led businesses for 20 or 30 years, and they've followed this business from really its nascency to really maturation. And from a balance sheet perspective, maybe they've lent 30, 40, $50 million done. We spoke recently about the relationship they had with Northern Trust. It was over the holidays, over Christmas, and Northern Trust wanted to lend to the business, but no longer lend to the business from a risk perspective. It would have been too much concentration with one company. So that's where they brought in Turning Rock. So, they're really cognizant of how many relationships they can have, the size of those relationships, the size of those companies, and just the capital constraints that they have on their balance sheet. So they look to bring in a high quality lender like Turning Rock to sit side by side with them when it comes to a loan.
So it doesn't have to do with the risk of the company, it's really a balance sheet question.
Yeah, exactly.
Any questions for me?
I'll go ahead, Carl.
Can you speak to the key person reason?
Sure. So we have negotiated, and Adam's here, that Maggie, the three principals, of course, Maggie, David, and Saba, we have negotiated a key person clause in the legal documents, specifically mentioning Maggie and David Marcus, who are the investment slash sourcing partner in the deal. And I have personally spoken with Maggie, who is youthful, and her almost entire net worth is in this firm that she owns. She is assured us that she's not going anywhere.
Yeah, because they said an unexpected change, then leadership goes to could bring uncertainty in the firm, so
Correct.
the uncertainty in the firm will have an impact on our returns.
Correct. But we've already negotiated that within the legal documents to protect the board, protect ourselves, that if she were to leave, that would, that key person event would come into effect and we could, exit the investment.
Okay, that's what we like.
Yeah,
Well,
we already, yeah, and she's not going to.
we all want to.
I know.
So far, 300.
Yes.
Main fund. Do we know how much is in the co-investment vehicle? Like,
This is something that we negotiated ourselves. Yeah.
also, the co-investment, only going to be 25 million period, or are there any other investors in the co-investment?
There will be other co-investments offered, right? Specifically, though, our exposure will be 25 million. The exact dollar amount I can follow.
The reason I'm asking is not what our exposure. The reason I'm asking is, will it be a larger amount of capital for them to invest as a whole, or will they only have 25?
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I misunderstood. It will be a large amount of capital.
So do we know so far how many other investors are in a co-investment vehicle with us?
I will have to, well,
We can ask them.
yeah, well, have to.
We'll get to you, because as they continue to fundraise, the numbers just,
Sure, yeah.
Look at the exact values.
And they're oversubscribed as far as this is concerned, which is a very good thing. As many funds are struggling like another base capital.
Questions, or should we bring them in?
Bring them in, lock tickets.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for having us. My name is Maggie Arland. To my right is David Marcus, and to my left is Saba Ahmad. Nice to see many of you. And thank you to the city of Philadelphia for hosting us today.
Sure. For joining us.
Absolutely.
How long is coming back? 20 minutes. Thank you.
We're in the hot seat for 20 minutes. Let's go. Thank you. Before I begin, does everyone have a copy of the presentation material?
Yes.
Wonderful, great. Well, we will start on page 4 here. It is my honor to be here. We work very hard for our client, and we are delighted to present Turning Rock Partners today. Here on page 4, you'll see an overview of our firm. These 3 individuals before you today are the 3 founders of the business, and we all wanted to be here as a sign of respect and commitment to the city of Philadelphia. We have close to $1 billion of commitments under management. We are a diverse and female-owned firm, and we are headquartered in New York City with 18 full-time employees. And we are here to talk about our Fund 3 offering. If we move to page 5, our bread and butter is to finance founder-owned and operated companies. So if you are a business in America today that's doing 30 million to 150 million of revenue, you are cash flow positive, and you want to enact change in your company, that is what we like to do. So we focus on businesses generally that are in very stable sectors. So it could be things such as transportation, could be things such as communications or essential business services. We finance those companies with primarily loans, but we can also do structured equity securities. And we typically write checks between 10 and 50 million per finance. We've been doing this as a team. I was laughing with David, and both of his kids are now working. And I remember when they were running around our desk in pigtails. So that's how long we've been together. Why does that matter? It should matter to you all because we have pattern recognition. We know a Turning Rock deal when we see it, but we also have trust and integrity between the three of us. And we seek to attract and retain diverse and inclusive talent. You'll see here on page 4, we've been WBank certified for those of you who track the women-owned space since 2017. We also were a founder for the Diversity in Action campaign led by ILPA back in 2020. And last year, we were privileged to earn Best Female Founded Firm by our peer group. And so we like to think that we're raising the bar every year and demanding that our industry continue to improve along those lines. If you go to page 6, one of the things that we wanted to share with City of Philadelphia is how we think about growth. So the platform today is $1 billion. We have a very stable and consistent team that has been with us since inception. And you'll see here, these are the characteristics of who we like to hire: high integrity people, problem solvers, clearly focused on credit and equity and good fundamental investing, but ultimately we want a socially minded workforce at Turning Rock. And if you go here to page 7, this gives you a highlight of our business today. We have many public pensions and corporate pensions. We believe that our capital and the returns that we give your plan matter, and that's important to us. We also have investors that are nonprofits, foundations, endowments, insurance companies, and the like. We have a very stable platform. We've been on or ahead of plan every year since our founding. So we really think about hiring, our vehicles, and our performance. We have a very strong history of fundraising. Every vehicle that we've ever raised, we've been humbled and fortunate to raise at or above the capital, and we expect the same for Fund 3. And Sava later will walk through our performance, but we are a top quartile performer across our peer group over multiple market segments. So just moving forward on 8, 3 major trends, right, that are tackling the market today. Number 1, the Fed action recently, in addition to the overall bank volatility, has created a lot of problems and less capital availability for founder-owned and operated companies, and we seek to help them with those issues. Number 2, there's reduction in credit availability. If you're a sponsor-backed company, meaning you have maybe a private equity firm or venture capital firm in your stack, much more easy to find capital. These companies often lack those incumbent networks to tap into that. And so we really view our role in the capital markets as very critical to finance growth. Many of our companies are creating jobs, they're acquiring, they are building, and we want to be part of that initiative. And so here on page 8, what we are proposing today for City of Philadelphia would be a $50 million commitment, $25 million to our main fund, Fund 3, and $25 million to our co-investment vehicle. I'll talk about a few challenges that companies are facing today, and then I will turn it over to David to cover our approach. So here on page 10 and page 11, I'll just talk you through a few things. Number 1, it's very challenging out there to run a business today. It's more expensive, it's harder to hire. We've had inflation double, and while it's been more moderate of late, it's still a very complicated environment for companies. When they go to local community or regional banks today and say, gosh, I'd like to acquire this business that will transform my earnings power over time, the banks are overwhelmed. Number one, they have problem loans on their balance sheet, and number two, they're not staffed adequately. So we really answer those needs of companies. Number two, it's a difficult, I would say, lower growth environment out there. And that means that we have to really choose our spots carefully. We look for companies that have good recurring revenue, that have diversified customer bases. We look for companies that have assets on their balance sheet. And certainly we look for companies where the founders, they win when we win, and they lose when we lose. We are perfectly aligned together. And that's very important. So if you leave today, we hope that you remember those tenets about Turning Rock. And now I will turn it over to my partner, David Marcus. We'll turn to page 12. I understand there might be some folks on Zoom. My apologies if my back is to you.
No worries. I'm good. I can hear. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, no disrespect. So if we go to page 12 here, we will talk about our 5 tenets.
When we started the firm, we knew we had a history of investing across cycles. And we knew to do that well, it was important to create a disciplined approach. That we look at companies the same way today that we did 3 years ago when the markets were a lot more frothy. Because in frothy market, it makes sure we're not making mistakes because we want to chase whatever the latest trend, because we go back to our key tenets. And the running joke within Turning Rock is that no presentation is ever complete unless I discuss the 5 tenets. I want to go through with you and explain how we use them to create the returns that are important for all of us around the table. The first 3 are very consistent, value-oriented approach. Things like we want to come in at a discount to entry. We want to think we're coming in at materially less than this business is worth. We need to see definable cash flow. There's plenty of good venture capitalists out there that will talk a multiple of revenue and a lot of other things. They do well doing that. We do well by looking at what cash the company generates, because that's how we get repaid as lenders. We also are looking for downside protection. We want to think what can go wrong and what we miss things. We did anticipate a global pandemic 3 years ago, but our portfolio. To miss that. Come on. Yeah, we will miss something going forward. But our portfolio did relatively well. We were able to address the issues that came up, but by virtue of coming in at a level where we had downside protection, it protected our capital and lets us earn a good return on both Fund 2 and Fund 3. The next 2 are things that we've learned over the course of our career. The path to exit. We're coming in, we're frequently the first institutional capital that a company will receive. We're helping a founder buy out a partner. We're helping them grow, build facilities. But we need to know, how are we going to realize this investment? Just buying something because it's cheap or we're going to make a return, it doesn't matter if they're unable to pay you at the end of the day. So we spend a lot of time thinking about looking at our projections, their ability to de-lever and pay us off. And finally, and I really give Saba all the credit on aligned management, as we've looked at an offsite, we do offsites every year. And one of the things that he pointed out was the highest correlation between our outcome and, is the aligned management team. What Maggie talked about before. Are interest aligned? Do they care? Do they have money invested? And we wanted to create a framework around it because everybody believes their management team is better than average. But we created a framework and an analytical tool to go in and look at it. And so we come in, and on page 13, we talk a little bit about a typical transaction for us. It's a lot of what Maggie talked about. Stable, tends to be lower growth, but less cyclical, highly cash flow generative. We have sectors that we focus on. We have other areas that we don't get involved with as part of our ESG And also as part of our belief that certain sectors are not don't align with what we want to invest in terms of just cash flow profile. But the real differentiator is on page 14, which is, we described it as a high covenant approach. That we go into working with these management teams to create an investment that lets us stay involved, understand what's going on, and come into voice if things start going off track. And periodically they do. So we have this nice chart, and it's not just words. We look at how much leverage they have, how much debt are they taking on, what is cash flow coverage, what is fixed charge coverage, and we sit down and we're very upfront with our portfolio companies when we go in. We don't spring this on them. They understand. We work with them to craft levels that make sense for them and their business. And it's not just my talk. If you look at the chart on the right, you can see the average number of covenants that we have on our deal. At the same time, the broader market is going down to about 1 covenant. We average around 4. And that has helped us out time and again, both the asset management we do post-close, but also having something that has some teeth when we need to bring that in.
So on 15, we'll just walk briefly through our due diligence process. It's very robust, it's very disciplined and repeatable. And that involves company analysis, financial analysis, a focus on the collateral value and the downside protection that David talked about, and of course, our investment value. We're very proud of our returns. It's one thing to be making money on an absolute and relative basis, but now I'd like to turn it over to Saba Ahmad on the team here to go over our historical performance.
So as already mentioned, our investment strategy is meant to invest across market cycles. And our Fund 1 and Fund 2 performance has been consistent and showing that we can perform in different market cycles. So Fund 1 is 2017 vintage fund. It's currently in harvest mode, and it is on track in terms of returning capital to investors. At this stage, we've already returned over 1 times total capital called from our LPs, and it's a top quartile performing fund. We have realized 11 investments, fully realized 11 investments within the fund, generating a 19% net IRR. We flip to slide 20. You can see that we've built a diversified approach within Fund 1 portfolio, and this continues in Fund 2, and is our plan for Fund 3 as well. Diversified across type of investments, duration of investment, and sector as well. Fund 2 is wrapping up active deployment. We expect to be done very shortly. We've been actively investing through the first of the year and generating 8% net return. And when you flip to slide 23, you see the same level of diversification. Due to the market cycle right now, we are leaning a bit more towards credit investing, but you'll see that we're diversified across duration and sector. And then on slide 23, a little bit of the differences we're seeing between the two funds in the markets that they're investing in. So as mentioned, Fund 2 is leaning more towards credit investing. We're generally seeing lower levels of leverage within the companies we're investing in. And we're really focused on floating rate facilities as well as liquidity and balance sheet for companies that we're investing with. Thank you, Saba.
So moving forward,
Sure. I need to go after this. You look at the asset type graph on 22. What would that look like for Fund 3? I know you can't be precise, but
I would say for Fund 3, it will most closely resemble Fund 2 right now. And
heavy on credit.
Heavy on credit, heavy on secured loans that are generating good current income, have attractive entry multiples that David just described. Look, we don't know what the Fed will do, but at some point the music stops, right? And hopefully this continued pain, right, ceases a bit. To that end, we do have SOFR floors built in. So if we do get a re-rating in terms of base rate, we're prepared for that without giving up returns for our investors.
And the duration looks a little longer in Fund 2, you got track for it also.
I'd say 36 to 48 months is fair.
Why are we willing to do that? I think that right now, given everything facing companies, they need a bit more time, right, to let their plans unfold. So sure, we can extend credit for a 12-month or 24-month period, but chances are they need a bit more time to allow either that acquisition or that transformational activity to really bear fruit. Also selfishly, we want the capital out a bit more so we can compound for city development. If so, for just what you just said, yeah.
Can you talk about a little bit about the sourcing?
Yes.
You source the type of companies that you target.
Yes, I'd happily talk about sourcing. If you follow along here on our presentation. So I'd like to answer that in two parts. The first, we talk about our senior advisors, and then I'll answer sourcing if you'll permit me. Page 34 and 35. So one of our secret sauces, as I like to say, is that we have, I would say, a big firm team, right? With a smaller firm approach. And so when we left our former firm, we sought to create a think tank of industry experts that could help both source, answer your question, but also to help us sharpen our pencil and diligence. And so here on this page on 34, these are the men and women that work tirelessly alongside us at TRP to really help us think through both deal sourcing opportunities. Many of them are very open and beneficial with their networks. We may also pull them in on diligence. For example, just because it's topical, Jackie Robinson Burnett, here under our regulatory government. She's the most senior African-American in the U.S. Army, just retired. She worked at the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for several years. And she helps us on any company that has government customers, for example. She'll go in, she'll interview CEOs. Boy, I mean, she is phenomenal. Or for example, Dan Zellum, recently retired as the Chief Technology Officer at Johnson & Johnson. He will go in and do cyber reviews, cybersecurity reviews for our potential borrowers, right? So we drop in these individuals in areas that can showcase their strengths, but that also add value in our diligence. And on sourcing, just to go back to your question, on sourcing, I would say it's manifold in nature. It's very tech-enabled, it's disciplined and repeatable. So we use a system called Deal Cloud, and each week we're tracking our sourcing systems. And so there are 5 main sources for us. It is our senior advisors. They play a very active role. Prior management teams, so meaning, CEOs and CFOs that took our capital before, as well as different banks. Occasionally it can come from tax lawyers, estate advisors. I mean, you never quite know, but it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we're working hard for our LPs to make sure that our sourcing networks are disciplined and repeatable. And there are some slides in here.
Yeah, page 35 goes through a little bit of it. I mean, we have a dedicated resource and that focuses just on that. It's going out to conferences in.
33, sorry, 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
That goes out and does this, meets the people, and we have a very defined process on how we bring investments in. How we do it, who takes the first looks, and how it moves forward through the investment team.
These advisors are not employees.
They are not employees.
So how stable is your group of advisors? Have they stayed stable? Do they advise for other private equity owners?
They are very stable, and you're welcome to call anyone on the list, truly. And please come to our AGM, you all are invited. They come once a year to New York City to meet all of our portfolio companies and investors. They also attend different, we call them brown bag lunches. Everybody brings their own lunch. We talk about a topic. Last year, we spoke about the dark web. The year before, we talked about AI, so we bring them in to give them a benefit, right? It's not always, hey, can you bring us deal flow? It's actually a two-way street. And that's important. So no, they're not solely retained by us or anything like that. But Jackie would tell you, we're the only firm that she works with, if you call her. And she's very happy to spend time with us. And I think the reason why, truthfully, is most of these men and women, they've had big careers in big places. They thoroughly enjoy sitting down with company owners and brainstorming with them about problems that they are trying to solve. They get a lot of satisfaction from that, but truthfully, they add value along the way. And then the other thing I'll mention just on sourcing, because this relates for Fund 3, we tier all of our opportunities that come in, and David touched on this. So we're very systematic about it. The 5 tenants that David just went through, we rank our companies on those 5 tenants. There's no point in us burning time on a company that doesn't have definable cash flow, lacks asset coverage, doesn't have management with substantial cash at risk, and so forth. And so by doing that and imposing discipline and our use of technology, our sourcing process is very efficient. And so we're set up nicely for Fund 3, but really beyond that as well.
Talk about the rank. Who makes the final call?
On investments, you're looking at them. Yeah. So we have a 3-man men and women investment committee, and we meet regularly to make investment decisions. And, we've been doing it for now, this will be our 16th year together. So it's my privilege to work with you, Stu.
So I know it's a term of art, but it sounds like your process keeps you out of the phrase stress.
Yes, you got it. We were really
like good experience. That's why it's.
Yeah. So we try to find companies that are fundamentally sound. And sure, stuff happens. I mean, we had a Fund 1 company, and I'll put it right out there. The facility was struck by lightning and the CEO got sick with cancer. I mean, it was a double whammy, right?
You didn't see that coming.
I mean, yeah, it wasn't even a credit memo for us. The lightning. Yeah. But the reality is we're built for a wide variety of outcomes. And if you look at our portfolio, even when we have a miss, we have diversification and we compound for clients and we work our hardest to make sure that we can generate returns over full market cycle.
And it is because in the 5 tenants, like, we don't do distress. I did distress in the past slide, like, I understand the process. I do this for, not having to go to the reasons why, but it's, we're looking for companies that aren't broken. We're not set up to fix them.
Oh, wow. Oh, night.
I was very serious about that. I was told back, there was no more question.
Okay.
You mentioned this,
Sure.
On page 46, a company called Illinois.
That was the one. That was the one, and as you can tell, our realized returns are still strong. This portfolio will still deliver a 15% net on 4. Yes,
That was it.
that was it. You know how to pick them, you get. But we would be honored to partner with City of Philadelphia. You'll see our proposal here in terms of Fund 3 at the back of the deck. And if there are any follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for all of the questions. And thank you, Chris, Adele, and Vern for bringing us through.
Do we have any other questions? I don't think Carol may added a board member to ask a question.
No.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I know.
Any questions for staff or Marquette? There, any promotion?
We'll make a motion and, go with staff recommendation of 25. Maybe 25. The co-investment. Where's the co-investment right now?
Yeah, you want to just do the 25 co-investments so there's no fee?
There's no. That's a 50 million, investment that we motion for.
But, all right, so the motion is to accept staff's recommendation for the full $50 million. It's been moved and properly seconded. Call the roll, Brian.
I approve.
Thank you, Francois. Approve. Martha. Roosevelt. Approve. Aubrey. Approve. Nick. Approve. Carol. Approve. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Great job.
Or,
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for work on the negotiation.
Whenever you're ready.
Sure. So briefly before Dave covers bulk of the real estate presentation, if you recall a couple months back, just given what's going on in the real estate market, some of the investments that the board has thought about making, and then with the asset allocation discussion coming up and the discussion next month. Thought it was a good time to review the real estate portfolio as well as the markets at a high level. Dave will walk through the 20 or so page deck. Happy to take questions certainly along the way. I think, you'll also see and you'll hear this month and next month, there's still some, areas of discussion and debate, I think healthy debate between staff and Marquette as it relates to future real estate investments, the value of core open-ended versus other strategies. And I think you'll kind of see that the beginning of that today, and I think, we'll get into that a lot more at the asset allocation and all this. With that, I'll turn it over to Dave to talk through the presentation.
Thanks, Chris. Good afternoon or good morning, everybody. You might hear the word closed. What's that? Close. But please feel free to interrupt. And before we jump in the deck, I just want to take a minute to reflect on why we invest in real estate and how we invest in real estate. If you think back to reading earlier this year, we spent a lot of time around this asset allocation principles and fundamentals, and this is part of that. When we invest in real estate, especially the way we invest in real estate through core open-ended real estate, really two reasons, and that's income and diversification. Within our total real estate portfolio, we access the asset class in three ways. We have an exposure to publicly traded REITs, which represents a very small percentage, by policy 1%. We have a dedicated allocation to closed-end real estate, which is winding down the remaining commitments from earlier before until I think 2016. But the bulk of our investment is in core open-ended real estate. And the reason that we invest that way, it offers immediate exposure to the asset class. And under those circumstances, it offers a source of ongoing. The benefit that we get from core open-ended real estate is you're investing in a certain property type that is heavily occupied. To be classified as a core property type, we have occupancy levels that are very close to or above 90%, meaning that in most circumstances, tenants are paying their lease or their rent on time, and that income is returned to investors. And since the inception of the Odyssey Index dating back to the late 70s, that income has been very consistent, around 3 to 4%. We'll show a slide of that in just a minute. When we think back to the close of the global financial crisis, when interest rates came all the way down to basically zero, stayed there for a very long time, we had a very small expected return from an asset class, really offered a source of diversification and protection during periods of economic dislocation. So many investors, including the city of Philadelphia, migrated from core fixed income to core open-ended real estate to substitute for income that we just weren't getting from U.S. Treasuries, investment grade fixed income, below investment grade income. It was a very attractive source. We think about diversification, this really is a key benefit. Diversification comes from low inflation. Core real estate exhibits or moves out of lockstep with publicly traded markets. When equities are up, we tend to see low to perhaps lower return in real estate. When real estate is up, perhaps we see lower return from public markets. And we saw that proven very clearly in 2022. Both equity and fixed income were down in double digits for the first time in a long time. Rarely do we see those two asset classes dropping, but as interest rates increase, equity values came down, fixed income values came down. The only asset class, the only liquid asset class in the portfolio in 2022 that was in positive territory was core real estate, up almost 7%. By contrast, the equity book was down 19, fixed income book was down 11. Now, fast forward 12 months or fast forward to where we are now, equity markets are off the chart. We've seen recovery from the bull market. Equities are up from the trough in October, close to 30%. Fixed income is relevant again. Attractive return from fixed income. This is the exact same pattern that we encountered following the global financial crisis. Equity markets collapsed in September of 2008 and recovered by about April of 2009. About 12 to 24 months later, we saw a downturn in real estate markets. That lagged effect, or that low correlation, while it's frustrating, lowers the volatility of the overall portfolio. We invest in asset classes that move like this, we have very volatile returns. We deliberately allocate to asset classes that exhibit low correlation, mitigating volatility. So that is the reason that we invest in core open-ended real estate. We are now in an environment where assets are being repriced. And assets are repriced in a much slower way in real estate markets than they are in markets like equities that are the market that they are trading. So we are experiencing that sort of trough. And this is a quick comment on closed-end real estate, which represents really the legacy allocation within the portfolio. Closed-end real estate, like private or very similar to private equity, requires commitments to be made and capital to be called over a period of time. The purpose of closed-end real estate really is capital appreciation. We select a manager buys a building, perhaps it executes some sort of rehabilitation, improves the lobby, improves the office, more tenants, builds up the value of the building and exit that, perhaps sells it to a core open-ended structure or to another buyer, and we source return from capital appreciation. So the key differences between core real estate and closed-end real estate is the source of return. We source income from our open-ended managers, capital appreciation from closed-ended managers. And that's a really important distinction. So any questions around why we rent the asset class and the diversification benefit?
Makes sense.
Nailed it. Practiced on the plan. So, well,
how were your neighbors feeling on the plane?
Yeah, they thought it was pretty good. So, the challenge of working with the screen is you can accidentally delete the experience, so go hard copy.
We have it printed out.
So let's start with what we own in the portfolio, and we'll come back to the state of the real estate market. And this starts on the banner page 14, the city's real estate exposure. And as I mentioned earlier, we really have two primary sources. Not really discussing the REIT exposure, that is traded like equity, is a source of liquidity, but high REIT exposure. So we have about 6 or 7 different legacy closed-end managers that are really in the process of being wound down. And what's unique about each one of these managers, they are, is everybody flying around? Yeah.
15. Okay.
Each one of these closed-end managers typically has a specific function. They specialize in a market segment. They specialize in multifamily, or in office, or in technology, or in data centers. So it requires the LP, in this case us, to make diversified allocation across different closed-end structures. And the lockup can be long, the returns can be spotty, and it doesn't offer the sort of liquidity that we should get from core open real estate. Now, of course, we're in a period now where transactions have gapped out, bid-ask spread is gapped out, and there is less liquidity than we normally see. We know that going into it. We have seen gains from core open real estate. The bulk of our exposure now rests within UBS and Clarity, two core open-ended managers, and these are commitments made in 2017, 2018 to capitalize on the diversification benefit and on the income benefit. And these managers, like almost every manager in the benchmark, the Odyssey benchmark, invest in very similar things. They hold very similar assets in very similar cities. And they're basically holding core or 4 property types: industrial, multifamily, which represents the bulk of the allocation, retail, which is now compressed down to about 10%, and then office. And of those 4, the sector that is under the most strain, as we all know, just from being in our respective cities, is office space. And the outlook for office certainly is in question. Multifamily has been resilient, industrial is captured on a trend in the way that consumers and businesses operate, and retail is now compressed down to very little value, 10%. But the future of office, the future of the way the American worker engages on a regular basis, I think is in question. And there is no clear path to whether or not we will see full occupancy in America's largest cities. And in all likelihood, this hybrid work structure is probably permanent because structural changes have occurred that allow us to operate differently.
How big is the exposure to the interest of office?
So if that's profile on page 20, and that exposure is less than the index. The index is at 20%, 21%. The exposure across these two managers, or our total exposure, is at 16%. So both of these managers have taken structural underweights to office, given with that.
How did that shift, if that affect the initial summary that you gave, with the reasons for real estate acting as a board?
It absolutely changes. I mean, you think about the merits of real estate, and one of the strongest selling points about core opening with real estate in America's primary cities that are geographically constricted, San Francisco, New York in particular, that could perhaps be flawed. We do not know if the American worker will want to return permanently to cities that perhaps are unsafe, that have budget problems. In a city like San Francisco in particular, when you have a concentrated workforce of just technology, those workers are easy, find it easiest to work remote. You know, following the global financial crisis, we saw a very quick recovery in the office space because these markets are resilient. There is access to the market, there's access to ports, seaports, colleges, universities, a very sophisticated pool of talent that are now going to other places, either working remotely permanently or moving to secondary and tertiary cities. So I think that the argument still exists for opening real estate, especially in the three markets. But the unknown now is, what is the future of office?
When you ended your introduction, you said, does anybody have any questions about why we invested in real estate? I think the answer now might be maybe.
Yeah. And so we also think about the reason that we invested in a low interest rate environment and fixed income. This was a very attractive complement. We are now back into an environment, and in all likelihood, we'll see another 25 basis point hike today, bringing interest rates back to the highest level in 22 years. We think about asset allocation, and the timing might not be perfect at this discussion, but perhaps thinking about ways to increase the allocation to fixed income. We won't have the same liquidity constraints. We're certainly earning more than we did a decade ago or 7 years ago.
Do you think those issues are also there for multifamily, industrial, retail? Should we switch the allocation within real estate?
So I don't think that those three other sectors are going to be exposed to the same challenges. Multifamily, and one of the benefits of multifamily, very short lease. If anybody's rented an apartment, if you think back to your 20s, 30s, that lease is only, so when rates increase, when expenses go up, that lease is increased. So that is one of the best of asset classes during a period of economic recovery, because those costs are passed on to the tenant, which are then passed back to the investor. Industrial has benefited from a significant shift in the way that households and businesses consume. And we've benefited from that. And retail is now compressed to a very small amount. And just sort of thinking very broadly about the future for opening real estate, and this is just my personal opinion, we could perhaps see an expansion of the index. Those four property types, retail is now a very small amount, office is only 20%, meaning that we have concentrated index positions in multifamily and industrial. We think about the real estate that's now being created, senior and assisted living, student housing, data centers, life sciences. These are all sub-asset classes that are held by some other types of core managers that offer liquidity. We can talk about those types of managers, but we may see an expanded opportunity set of core open real estate managers to accommodate the shifting landscape of the underlying property types. So just reflecting on those comments, the merits of real estate still exist. The income is consistent. We are not investing in core real estate for capital appreciation. When we look back over the last 100 years, most properties just increase in value at the same rate of inflation. Let's just say that rate over the long term is 3%. When we had 3% of long-term consistent asset growth with consistent income of 3 to 5%, that's a consistent return close to our actuarial rate of return of around 6.5 to 7.5%. And we see that persist. But the big question now is, what is the future of all this? And this is a huge demographic shift. You probably haven't experienced since the Industrial Revolution, when workers left the farms and went to the cities. Now, will we see that shift back? I'm not sure. There's a huge appetite of younger people to live in the cities. But people with families, it's very difficult to live in high rises or urban environments.
So Brandon's point, that means it seemed like we should be cautious.
Yeah, and pause is certainly fine. We have our 10% goal allocation by market value. We have about 5.7%. So we are underweight just as a function of overall market activity. And it's still an important asset class. They don't necessarily suggest that we totally divest, because at first it's very difficult to get the money back now, and valuations are in the low. This is also a period where money could be coming in. This is an attractive opportunity to buy in the asset classes. Closed-end real estate managers are probably finding opportunity. Terry Brock just commented on opportunities for or looking for companies that are experiencing some sort of valuation disconnect. The same thing will happen against real estate. And when you think about our long-term asset allocation, we are contemplating scenarios where we encounter periods of stress across asset classes. That has a 10-year time horizon. So we do expect to see periods of market decline or income decline, but it's been very consistent over the long term. And there isn't any reason to doubt that income will significantly change.
And if you're looking for value, or you're looking for closed end versus more so than open end, it's because they're more like an active manager, I guess.
Yes, Brad, that's a great point, right? If you wanted to make dedicated allocations and look for opportunity, closed-end real estate does offer that, but it is much, much harder to underwrite and to implement. It is much easier to get it wrong. You think about the allocations we've made historically, it requires a lot of different line items to get a well-diversified real estate portfolio. And if we change, it requires us to lock up capital. When we think about locking up capital for 15 years, where are we best compensated? Private equity. We lock up capital in private equity. That's where we should expect to source the biggest liquidity. So if we make a decision or think about closed-end real estate, we're not just thinking about the asset class. We're thinking about that illiquidity premium, and are we or are we not being compensated?
The asset allocation coming up in the fall, and something that moves that the board is being with Chris's recommendation, the return we're getting on cash. Pause, as Rob said, is not necessarily a bad idea.
Absolutely. And we are still in an environment where there is a questionable macroeconomic environment. Inflation has come way down from 9.1% a year ago. We may see one more interest rate hike, and we may see one. And for me personally, I wouldn't feel comfortable in making a dramatic change in strategic asset allocation until we know what the future holds, until we get a much clearer signal around the path of interest rates in particular.
The next question about office space and class of real estate. I've seen in the news anecdotally that Class A office space is still experiencing high occupancy, still holding value. Is that true?
That's absolutely. And so when we think about our core real estate properties, we tend to have high quality, larger assets that still attract tenants. The overall vacancy rate in these office properties, or at least in the UBS, I think is about 80%. San Francisco, I'm sorry, the vacancy rate is 20%. The occupancy rate is 80%. In office space.
San Francisco.
Yeah, San Francisco, the vacancy rate is like 30%, Manhattan 18%. But what we are seeing, and this is true of luxury apartments, luxury multifamily, I don't think there's anything that is luxury industrial, that's all just sort of warehouse. But Class A properties in Chicago, New York, some other large cities, Philadelphia, still, of course, Comcast, yeah, are still very attractive. However, we are not seeing net absorption gains or net gains in new tenants. These new properties are sucking tenants out of older properties. And those properties are not being replaced. In Chicago, you can see that firsthand. In the last 5 years, there are about 6 properties that have been built in the Fulton area, the Fulton Market District, in the northwest part of the loop. They all look the same. They're all tall, they're all glass, they all look perfect. And they've sucked out tenants from the financial corridor on the south. The new net tenants, in fact, Salesforce, one of the largest occupants, is already looking to sublet that property. So while there's attractive, it's definitely diluted to some of the other properties. But in general, those types of properties, the core real estate managers historically held.
You're not looking to change necessarily where we at with real estate, because I know a lot of even with the city of Philadelphia, is doing a lot of business, well, creation as far as fair housing or affordable housing, right? They have the turnkey program, they have other that's asking people to buy housing in Philadelphia, right? So are we looking to move away from real estate individually? Or are we looking to stay still where we're at, because this is a whole lot of apartment buildings all over the city of Philadelphia?
The purpose of this is to make sure that we are aware of what's happening in the real estate market. That we are not making a recommendation or change. There is still a lot that's happening in the real estate space. If you look over the long term, the income characteristics, the diversification characteristics are still relevant. And during periods of panic, and panic in the real estate market is much more prolonged than the market activity we see in equity markets. So we should be aware, we should pause, we should reflect, we'll look at asset allocation. Probably wouldn't come in with any real hard changes because of the macroeconomic uncertainty, but thinking through the next 6 months, the next 12 months, where should we be? Perhaps we should be thinking about other real asset classes, recognizing that there can be some valuation opportunities or simply fixed income. But now is not the time to make a change. The nature of the asset class doesn't allow us to be precise, right?
You're talking about new commitments.
Yeah, correct. Right.
Yeah.
So this is not the first time we experienced a fall in or question about real estate on this board, so it's like, Mr. repeating this out.
Yeah. And, you know, but it's so important to just reflect on really the last 12 months. Real estate, the benefit of diversification was very evident. And it's, you know, we talk about it less when it's good, we focus more on it when it's bad, but the real estate diversification works both ways. And it's a pattern that we've experienced on multiple occasions.
So one of the things I'm thinking about is, do you think the political climate as we go forward into 2024, I'm thinking about the impact that could possibly have, because, okay, we're semi-blue state, okay, we're blue state, you know, so what happens to the point about people not going into the office? If things really change south of us, that could present all kinds of opportunities in the upper northeast in terms of whether it's office space, building homes and the whole 9 yards. So I'm thinking political climate probably is going to have some kind of impact in the mix.
Absolutely, we cannot discount the impact that has. It's probably a minimal impact on industrial space, a minimal impact on retail. Where we see most of the industrial concentration, coastal cities where, you know, inbound traffic is coming. That's it holds inventory and distributes throughout the US. But there is a shift to the southeast and to the southwest, and that impacts the attractiveness, the demand for multifamily. And you can see those prices continue to go up. Cities like Portland and San Francisco are challenged because of some of the policies that they've had around the fund. And there's no surprise that those vacancy rates are high. Now, that's also a very attractive place to live for a number of different reasons. And if we see changing political policies there, sort of recriminalize some actions, we will probably see interest moving back in. But that is very concentrated. I mean, one of the other important characteristics is tenant diversification. if you have a building where all of the employees work at Comcast and Comcast goes under, or all are in the tech sector, think about Houston, during periods of energy fluctuation, very concentrated. Detroit is probably one of the best examples in the seventies, concentrated market and auto. San Francisco is exposed to tenant diversification, but that could very quickly turn the other way if, political policies change. We just don't know how that will change and how long it will take, but it's certainly something we're considering. The other sort of interesting observation is this, this massive, heat wave that exists in America's Southwest. I mean, at some point when we see people moving from the Southwest back to the Northeast or the Midwest because the climate's more attractive. Possibly, and that would be, is that a generational impact? How long will that take? But these are all things that we think about as part of real estate that take much longer to observe as opposed to publicly traded securities where we see the movements every day.
That also with the new intent or swing building of the 76 estate in the city, will that impact, because we got a lot of business that's gonna be moved and pushed back or pushed away, right? So, and then we're gonna lose that stadium out there where they at. Is that gonna have an impact on us, or that won't affect us at all?
Yes, I mean, the properties that are held in the core of the real estate are pretty specific to larger offices, multifamily. In West, we're talking about those types of properties specifically, that probably won't have much of an impact.
Any other questions? Great, this was really helpful.
There's a lot of data in here that we spoke about, we didn't cover directly, happy to answer any other questions, but it's a fascinating asset class because we can all look, see and feel it, and we have our own interactions here in Philadelphia or other cities. It's good that we spent some time reflecting.
Yes, and it's clear. You can go much further.
Except for we're not going to debate by the word.
Thank you very much. That takes us to number 4.
Just to cover the, adjustment performance briefly, Dave, just at a high level, Dave mentioned already, the Fed, rising interest rates, the locked up nature of the real estate market. I think we continue to see some really conflicting, there's economic signals depending on what type or what part of the market you're looking at. A couple of the big companies that reported earnings this week kind of changed their forward-looking guidance. Coca-Cola, Pepsi was much more positive than perhaps the prior quarter. The good news, I think that they were starting to reach their limit of being able to pass on price commodity increases. They've seen folks starting to switch to private labels or different brands. So they seem to indicate that they felt like, at least in the short term, they weren't going to be able to raise prices all that much higher. Google and Microsoft, completely different areas of the market, their earnings expectations. And then I think another thing to keep an eye on is that there's definitely some reports out there talking about higher oil prices by the end of the year. That would obviously have, impact, particularly if you hit the winter months, which have to do with consumers paying bills, to keep their homes. But Goldman and some others are talking about, forecasting higher demand for the next 6 or 12 months. The fiscal year returns, which include the fourth quarter private equity numbers for 2022, 7.6%. So above the annual assumed rate of return.
That's not likely to change.
No, I would expect minimal movement in private equity for the third quarter of the fiscal year, perhaps slightly down, but then I would expect, given what happened in the public market in Q4 of the fiscal year, that would, if anything, kind of slight uptick.
Chris, again, just I feel compelled to congratulate the board and the investment staff on that fiscal year to get it. It did so well and get to that, but actually surpassed the super rate. Let's go work by the board or CAD. So.
Yeah, great work. Thank you. You're welcome.
do think it's worth noting too, and maybe, we don't focus or I don't call this number out enough at the table, but Marquette has started putting it in at the board's request. I think it's important to see what the cash adjusted return is, especially as we were talking about fixed income and the role of cash in the portfolio. The policy benchmark is at 7.9%. But if you take into account all the cash that we're holding and how the benchmark, the fiscal year benchmark is actually 6.1. So that it's a big difference when you talk about the level of cash we're holding. I think that the board has made the decision wisely to do that. But it is, I do think it's worth it.
So that's 1.5 points for.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Tremendous.
Yeah. No actual concerns with any of the managers. We talked about real estate at length. I think there was a couple questions last month about the global evolve. Fidelity did have a nice month.
Kind of what you said would happen is
It's nice when it happens once in a while. So hopefully that will
pointed out.
continue. Yeah, I appreciate it. So hopefully that will continue. Obviously, we'll have a robust discussion next month and then beyond if we need to on the asset allocation, and we'll continue to keep the board up to speed as we finish the RFP distribution and investment. The question. And then just quickly, the staff reports, securities lending, 167,000 change for the month. 52.8 million since the program started. Email and diverse statement broken out. It's on category 52.17%. Philadelphia and surrounding counties 9.17%. Put the two together, approaching 59%.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and it was nice. I know Steve, I saw Carol, I know a bunch of folks on staff were there. I didn't see Diana, I was confirmed. Or, it was nice to just hear some of the comments about the city, about the board and its work on diverse and local email that managers, especially compared to some other utilities. The panel that I was at, we talked a lot about, what the numbers look like, say in 2008 or 2006, being where they are now. And where certain other plans that you had these robust programs, great fanfare, and they were, with very dismal numbers in, 08 or 2010, and really haven't budged all that much. I mean, we were there for that, Carol, for that particular conversation. So, not to say that, it continues to be a core mission to the board and of course the staff and Marquette, but it is nice when you kind of see that comparison to other, to other friends and kind of things, able to voice my code. You said we've been here the longest for us. So your leadership on this issue is noted. Upcoming board meetings, remember we changed the August meeting for the board did rather to the 29th, which was Tuesday. Then September 28th and October 26th. I don't know if at the next meeting, we want to discuss what we've done for November and December, just so folks are in plan. That's good.
I do want to thank Chris, Fern, Adele, Diane did come, but Philip Perkins at the NAS conference was very, very impressive. As they played, people were really next. Chris' panel was great. Vern's panel was great, and I think we did an awesome job representing the city of Philadelphia. So I really want to thank them for coming.
But Jackie's panel.
No, Jackie, I'm so sorry, but I was late. I do want to compliment you because I did meet a gentleman yesterday that you had meet with yesterday. And he said the meeting was good. So yes, Jackie, I will say that. Thank you so much. So no, so the agenda was so small, I couldn't read it. So I thought the meeting was at 9 o'clock. I get there, everybody coming out the session, I'm like, what's going on here? They wouldn't dismiss the panel, but I miss a lot of people. Derek Green spoke and, you know, with several panel, but it was very, very good. But I'm sorry, Derek, I was there for this day, so, but I'm sure you represented us very well. No bad remarks. But everything was nice. Thank y'all for allowing me to attend, and it was just nice to see the board being represented and people enjoying my time and stuff. So, and it was funny because they said it was a panel of mayors from Atlanta, Montgomery, Alabama, and Little Rock, Arkansas, all African American. That's right. All African American men. But they were saying that New York's minority allocation is only like 1.2%.
Yeah, you're.
Yes. Yeah, no, there's something about the mayor, the New York, because the mayor has, you know, all five boards.
Yeah.
So this is showing we
And
can't
it's
say
barely,
like,
yeah, it's barely, but
the barely,
the
but.
number.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other new business? Any old business? Moved probably second, yes. Adjourned, we are adjourned. Take call the full board into session. Is there a motion to accept the recommendation to action?
Second.
We probably second, I'll call the roll, Brian.
Brian, wake up.
There we go. Sorry, I was muted. I approve.
Marcia. Roosevelt. Approved. Aubrey. Approved. Nick. Approved. Harold.
Approved.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Any new business for the full board? Old business? Yes, we can probably take it to their turn. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thanks for doing this, Elizabeth.
You're welcome. Have a good one.
Yeah.